Oh, hey there. That's stupid. Tight. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for stopping in. Today I have another YouTube tutorial for you. No, I don't. I have a Webflow tutorial video for you. Oh, boy. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to all my new subscribers. I've been waking up every morning and seeing a couple new subscribers had joined, and it's really awesome to see. I'm super excited that you guys are digging the tutorials that I've been putting out, and I'm really excited to keep it going. So I have another one for you today. This one is also based on the Expedition Co. site. It's going to be a reveal panel reveal effect, and when you scroll away from the page or scroll away from the section, it's going to reveal into the next one, and when you go back, you'll be able to see the panel sort of reset itself and reveal into view again. And this is actually really easy to do with the native Webflow interaction tools, and I'm going to show you how to do it every step of the way. So without further ado, let's hop over into it. All right, everybody. So I'm going to start by showing you kind of what I've laid out in terms of structure here. I've kind of gone ahead and built out this page with just some basic Webflow layout structuring. I won't go into that in detail. I'll give you the clonable project so you can go and look through that on your own. But what I will show you is sort of how the elements of the effect is structured. So to start with, I have a section, and I've just named that section, and I have one of those for each of my panels here. That's going to be each of the sections of content, and then inside of that, I have another wrapper div called panel, and then this is going to be what the interaction is triggered on. So when this panel scrolls into the viewport, we're going to trigger the reveal interaction on there. Inside of that panel, we have a few elements. We have this poster here, which is the image, and that's a div with inside of there we have a poster image and a poster revealer. You can't see this right now because I have it set to be display none, so it's just easier to work with. I'll take that off really quickly so we can see it. So all it is just an absolute positioned element that is positioned over top of that image inside of the poster div. Okay. Next we have over on the left here, we have another div called poster text. And inside of that, we have two main elements here. So we have the heading main and the heading sub. And what I've actually gone ahead and done is a little trick I like to use when building in Webflow. So you'll see that I have this first one here named heading main heading. And then if I go to the next one down below, it's heading subheading. So what I've done is applied styles to just the heading itself. So I like to do this for mainly to keep my interactions organized later. So I'll show you what I do. I'm going to set a class on the element to begin with called heading, and I want to set my default styles to this class. So in this case, I have it set to be overflow hidden, and the position is set to be relative. And what that allows me to do is then apply this heading class to other elements and give them these properties by default. So I don't have to keep, every time I try and style a new element, I don't have to keep, setting the default properties again. But when you do that and you're trying to set interactions on them, Webflow only looks at the first selector and puts that in the name for your interactions timeline. So it kind of gets a little bit confusing that way. So what I'll like to do is I'll just backspace this class off of it. I'll give it another class. In this case, it was heading sub. And this doesn't really have this can have additional properties to it. This one in this case only has an additional property of a top margin on it. But then I'll apply that other class to this as well. So, it gets all those default properties again. So now this is also overflow hidden and display or position relative. And I do that for, all those objects. So this one is sort of the same. It's got the heading as a combo class, and then heading main. That's what's going to show up in my interactions timeline. So inside of this heading main and heading sub, which have that base class of heading, like I said, we have a line of text, and I have this set to be heading text large. I've done something similar on these elements as well, where I've set the default classes, to heading text, and then I've added in that modifier to give it specific styles for that one heading. And also lets me, like I said, I can target that specifically in the interactions stage. And then next to that, I also have a revealer, and this is again the same thing. Its defaults are all set on head and revealer, and then I have an additional naming class for revealer one for again working with those interactions. And to make this easier to work with, I've gone ahead and set these revealers to be display none. I'll just take that off for now so you can see what they look like. I can do the same thing for here. And just remove that. So basically, this is what the structure looks like. And just to help illustrate that a little bit easier, I'll jump over to Sketch. And you can imagine that this dotted line, the red dotted line, that's the outer div, the heading box. And then inside of there, we have the revealer and the heading text, right? So by default, we're going to position this revealer in a way that it's outside of the container completely. And because this is set to be overflow hidden, this won't be visible, right? So then when the interaction starts, we can drag in the revealer. When it gets to this position, we're going to set the heading text to be 100% opacity, whereas at the start it would have been, at 0%, so it wouldn't have been visible. And then that's going to happen instantaneously when this box here gets to this position. Once that text is visible, then behind there, we're going to slide the box off again, and it's going to look like it reveals behind there. So that's the gist of how this interaction is going to work. So again, we have the revealer on top of some text inside of a container, the revealer over top of some text inside of a container, and then we have an image inside of a container with, again, a revealer on top of that image. So let's get started on the actual interactions now. So we're going to do that by selecting the panel element here. And we want to trigger this anytime that the panel is brought into the view. So if we select the panel and we go over to the Interactions tab, we can add a new element trigger on there. And we're going to call this, or we're going to select the Scroll into View trigger. And then we want this to trigger on all elements with the class of panel. Okay, so this is going to be reusable for all of our other panels as well. What is this? Okay, just say okay. So we're setting there, setting that to trigger on all panel elements, and we're going to start with a new animation on the scroll into view portion. I don't know why that keeps popping up. So now that we're in here, we're going to set a new timed animation, and we'll call this reveal in. So now we have to set all its basically the initial state for all of these elements. And in this case, we want to position the revealers sort of off canvas. We want to make the image and the text invisible. The opacity set to 0. And we'll do that now. So we're going to we'll select the revealer 1. And here's where you can see now that this organization is going to come into play that I talked about. So we've selected the revealer 1 element. We'll add a new action here on the move, and we're going to affect the class all children with this class. So this is going to affect all children of the panel element that we're running the interaction on with the class of revealer 1. And then we're going to set the X position of this to be minus 100%, which will move it off and out of view of that container, like so. And then we can do the same thing for revealer 2, and so on until we get to the end here. So let's set this move, affect class children. We'll set this to be negative 100% again. And then for the poster revealer, we're going to do the same thing, only in the Y direction. We'll set it to be 100%, so it goes down to the bottom. And this is 100% of the height of the element. That's how that's calculated. So that's positioned off here. And we also, again, want to affect the class children with this class. And then what we can do is actually drag this down just to keep our actions, timeline organized. So then we want to set the text to be opacity 0 and the image to be opacity 0 as well by default. So let's select the heading text large. We'll set the opacity to be 0. On the class, only children with this class, move it down. We'll do the same thing with the text small. Opacity 0. Affect children with this class. So that's a little bit repetitive, but no biggie. We'll select the poster image as well. Oops. Class children with this class, set the opacity to 0, and move it down. So now we have the default state for everything, and what we can do is select it all, and we'll set this as initial state. So when this page first loads, everything is going to look just like this. Nothing is there. Perfect. Okay, so now we can start building the interaction and the animation. And this is where the organization comes into play. It's super helpful now because I have each element here named, and it's number one, it's all set in the classes, so this is going to be reusable, but it's also named, so I can actually just select one of these objects and then start building interactions down the timeline as well. So I don't have to keep flipping back and forth to the the layers palette or trying to get out of interactions to try and build my interaction. I can just select everything from here. So the first part of it, we want to bring over the poster image revealer. So we'll start with that one. So we've selected the poster revealer. We're going to add a new action, move, and we're going to set the Y to be 0%. It's really important that you set the units to be the same. So you're always using the same units on your animations. Otherwise, you're going to get some really weird glitchy effects, and you may not get what you're expecting. So I set that to be 0% in the Y direction. And then I'm going to select the image, and I want the image to now get its opacity back, but not until I've set the poster revealer into position, right? So it's going to kind of happen behind there. So what I'll do is I'll add a new action at the same time as poster revealer. I'm going to add that on the poster image, set the opacity to 100% again, but I want this to happen instantaneously, so there's no animation on it. So I'll set the duration to 0, and I want it to happen after the revealer happens. So I'm going to set this to be 0.3 seconds. And I'm going to set the movement actually, I'm going to just set this to be 0.5 right now so I don't have to keep going back and forth. And then we can adjust the timing later. So it's on a half-second delay, which means it's not going to pop into full opacity until this duration has completed, right? So it's going to wait for it to be completely covered, and then it's going to go into full opacity, the image. And then at that point, I can move the revealer again to be minus 100%, and the poster is now completely revealed. And then I'm going to just keep doing that for all the other elements as well. So I'll grab over on revealer 1, and we're going to add in a new action here. On the move, we'll set the X for that to be 0%, so it comes back over. Then we're going to grab heading text large, add a new action. We'll set the opacity to be 100% and 0 second duration, 0.5 second delay. So it happens after the revealer gets into position. And then we'll select the revealer again and add a new action. That is going to move it to be 100% to the right, and that's going to reveal that one. And then we'll do the same thing for revealer 2. So we'll set the movement to be 0%. We'll grab heading text small, opacity 100%, 0 second duration with a 0.5 second delay. And then finally, we'll grab the revealer 2 again and move that over 100%. So if we play this, we should get some semblance of what we're looking for, albeit it's pretty slow, right? So that's way too slow. You're going to get really annoyed if you're having to wait for that to come in every time. So let's play with our timing now. So first of all, let's grab all the movement items, and let's reduce the duration of those. So you can actually select elements, and you can select more than one element by holding the command key, control if you're in Windows, and you can just select these objects. I'm going to select all the ones that are on the movement, and I'm going to set that to be 0.3 seconds instead, so it'll happen a little bit quicker. And then for these opacity ones, the poster image, the heading text large, and the heading text small, we're going to set that to be on a delay that matches that, so 0.3 on the delay. And we can leave that as linear because that's going to happen with a 0 second duration, so it's not going to matter because it's just going to happen instantly anyway. But for the movement in and out, we're going to want to put some easing on there as well. So let's select the in states for all these revealers. So let's grab the first revealer. We'll grab revealer 1 on its movement in, and we're going to grab revealer 2 on its movement in as well. And we'll set that to be ease in. And then we can grab the second action that we have on there for the motion out. So revealer there, and we're going to grab the second revealer 1 and the second revealer 2, and we'll set this to be ease out. So when we play this, it's going to look a little bit smoother. But you'll see there's a little bit of a delay after each one of these items because it's doing one reveal at a time, and that still feels a little bit slow, right? It still takes a long time to reveal itself. So let's move some of these interactions up so they start with other actions as well. So to start with, let's make the first revealer start when the poster, the first text revealer, let's make that one start with the poster revealer when that's moving out of position. So let's grab this first object here, and let's actually move both of these. Let's grab the revealer 1 and the heading text large, and we're going to start that with the previous action. And then we'll just make sure that heading text large has a 0.3 second delay on it again. So now if I play that, that feels a little bit better because the text, the heading is starting its reveal when the poster reveal is on its way out of view, like so. And then we can do the same thing for the other objects as well. So we can grab reveal 2 and the heading, and we're going to make this start with the previous action. So it's going to happen when revealer 1 is on its way out. And then again, we'll make sure that we've selected the heading text small, and we'll set that to be on a 0.3 second delay. So when I play this, now that feels a little bit better. Each action starts with the last. Okay, so now we have the reveal in going here, and if I preview this, we can go down, and you'll see that they are coming in. And when I go back up, they reveal themselves again. So the interaction resets, and that's really cool. We can adjust the timing of this as well. So if we go into, we get back out of here, and we jump out of here, and we select our interaction. We can play with the offset of this. So I've messed around with this before, and I liked 30%. You can mess around with this as much as you like to kind of sort of fiddle with it. And this is going to be basically the offset of when the animation starts. So it's not going to start when it gets to 0. It's going to start down at 30% instead. So it starts just a little bit, starts and ends a little bit sooner, so you can kind of see the animations happening. You can just play with that until it feels good. We can add in one more effect to make this feel a little bit better. Let's make it so when we scroll down, the actual panel itself fades away instead of just animates out, because that looks a little bit jarring, and it sort of distracts you from the next panel animating in. But when we want it to come back, we do want it to animate into position. So let's add that as well. So we'll go back into our panel, scroll into view, and on the reveal out, let's add in a new action here on the panel itself. We're going to set the opacity to be 0%, and we want this to affect the interaction trigger now. So this is going to affect only the element that is triggering the interaction. In this case, it's the panel. And we'll make this happen in 0.5 seconds, sure. Let's set the easing function to be ease in out. And then let's grab all these other actions and move it after that. Oh, like so. And we'll make this happen instantaneously, so we don't have to wait for it to reset itself at all. So this is going to set the panel to be 0% opacity. When it scrolls out of view, it's going to fade away. Then it's going to set these all the elements back to their original positions. And then we need to jump up the opacity of it again when it's completely out of view. So we can reset the interaction again. So we don't want to set that on revealer 1. We want to make sure we have panel selected, and then we'll bring up the opacity to 100% again, and we're going to make this happen instantaneously as well. So when I go back over here to preview mode, you can see when I scroll down, the top one is going to fade away, like so. The next one will reveal in, and then when I go back up, it comes back again. Pretty awesome. So yeah, that's the whole tutorial. Thanks for sticking around until the end. Hopefully you learned something, and I will leave a link to the clonable project for this down in the description below. If you have any other ideas for future videos, or if you have any questions on this video, leave those in the comments down below, or you can slide into my DMs over at Twitter and tweet them at me. I I'm going to be trying to do this a little bit more regularly, so if you've enjoyed the content that you've seen so far, hit that subscribe button. You can ring the bell to be notified when new content goes up. And yeah, until next time, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.